Welcome to the first program of the European report of this new year 2024. In this program, which is recorded here in the European Parliament in Brussels, we discuss each month issues related to Israel and the Jewish communities from a EU perspective. Whereas the world has just ushered in the year 2024, the Jewish world is quickly approaching 100 days since the brutal massacre on October 7 in south of Israel by Hamas, followed by the kidnapping, abduction of over 240 innocent people, mostly civilians. In this edition of the European report, we will discuss what has changed in EU-Israel relations during the last 100 days and how it will affect our relations long term. With us today in the studio, we have member of the European Parliament from Germany, Mr. Lars Berg. Thank you for coming.
Pleasure.
From the European Conservative and Reformist Group, and Tomas Sandell from the European Coalition for Israel. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz of Europe-Israel Press Association and European Jewish Press. This is European Report. I will start with you, member MEP Berg. Today the news is in The Hague, where a case has been brought by South Africa against Israel for committing a genocide against the Palestinian people. Well, this is quite absurd for many people because the war in Gaza started, in fact, when there was this massacre, and then Israel replied with a military operation. What is your view on this case brought by South Africa in The Hague at the international court? Is this not political in your view?
Well, I think it's important to make a differentiation. I think it's probably not South Africa, it's rather the ANC. And the ANC has a track record of very close relationship and supporting for years and years the Palestinian people and the Palestinian movement. So I think there is not much merit in this course that is taken to the ACJ. And by the way, it might be coincidence or not, but only recently ANC leaders have been to Doha, to Qatar, to meet officials, and that causes some questions as well. So it's very political.
And also I found, this is by the way, I found that in 2017, South Africa was condemned by the same court for having hosted the Sudanese President Omar al-Bashir, who, you know, what he did in his country, and they hosted him. So you thought sometimes double standards.
Double standards and quite contradictory, I would say. Yes.
Tomas Sandell, the same question regarding this case today. Tomorrow there will be, Israel will present its defense. Today it was South Africa. What do you think about this case brought by South Africa for genocide?
How absurd, as both of you mentioned already. Isn't it an interesting paradox that the founder of the Convention of Genocide was a Jewish person, Raphael Lemkin, who after the Holocaust would travel around the United States and elsewhere to try to pursue the decision makers to establish a convention on genocide, of course looking back at what happened to the Jewish people. And today we have a situation which is completely reversed. Now the Jewish people who were murdered and persecuted during the Holocaust, now they are being accused of committing genocides themselves. It's completely absurd. Let me say this. When we look at Jew hatred throughout ages, this is a modern blood libel. The Jewish people have always been accused, according to the standards in contemporary society, of the worst crimes possible. So during the medieval times, Christ killers. During the post-Enlightenment, Untermenschen. And today, in this same way, baby killers, committing genocide. There can be nothing worse. So you see a natural evolution of how, I would say, and I'm not embarrassed to say that, of anti-Semitism, how it is evolving. And isn't it also a big paradox that in the charter of Hamas, what do you have there? You have a very clear intent of wanting to annihilate a whole people group, the people of Israel. But this is not Hamas which is being brought to the Hague. It's the opposite. It's the victims of Jew hatred and anti-Semitism and genocide over the years. And again, as you said, on October 7. What strange world we're living in.
And Israel has always repeated that it is not a war against the Palestinian people, but
Correct.
against Hamas.
Correct.
So it's a bit contradictory, as always.
Yeah.
MEP Berg, you were in Israel last month, I think.
Correct. Yes.
You visited as part of a delegation. You have been visiting kibbutz Kfar Aza, which was one of the kibbutzim that suffered the most during the 7th of October massacre. I would like to know what you saw during the visit. Was it the first visit in Israel?
The second visit, yes.
And what you saw, what you're feeling, and what is your take on what you have, you met people, you have discussed. What is your thought today about this?
Well, it was a mind-widening visit. This second visit of mine to the State of Israel. And I'm very much convinced that Israel, the democracies, the Western world and Ukraine are standing at a crossroads. We are facing forces of destruction, and there are some forces of construction. And visiting the kibbutz was a very shocking experience, that people are able to commit such atrocities to children, to babies, to women, and to use, be it Hamas commanders or Hamas soldiers or even non-Hamas members, sexualized force, rape, which is something extremely condemnable. And I think it is very important for the European Union, the member states, and the democracies of this world to support Israel in the course of eliminating these forces of evil and at the forefront of this battle.
We will speak later about the EU position regarding this conflict, because this is also an important topic for us. Tomas, Sandell, you have been to Israel many times over the past year, and again in November, I think. What, in your opinion, has changed during these 100 days since this 7th of October massacre?
Mm-hmm. I think we will always look back on history as October 7 as a real game changer, not only because of what happened, but also because of the ramification. I think this is a huge wake-up call. I think if this could happen to the most peace-loving tribe, so to speak, within Israel, because we know in those at the dance party, that was a peace festival. The kibbutzes, many of the people, the first to die, were some of the most active peacemakers in all of Israel. If this could happen to them, I think many Israelis are wondering, what room is there for compromise? How will they look at Israelis who perhaps are more at the center, or not to say on the right side on the political spectrum? So I think in Israel we've seen this, and I would say in the Jewish diaspora, I speak with many who would consider themselves to be progressive liberals, and they're shocked. They said, listen, we always thought that, we would be the ones to be somehow spared, and they would make internal differentiation and saying, well, we can understand people are upset with settlers, people are upset with people on the political right, but then there are the reasonable, likable, peace-loving, very liberal Jews that everyone likes. This is not the case, and I think this is a shock for many, and it also means that it has political ramifications. I know, on a different note, that neoconservatives are sometimes called or defined by liberals who've been mugged by reality, and I think in some way many people feel that they not only that they've been mugged, they've been raped and desecrated by a very harsh reality that many would hope that would not be there. So that's the shocking side. But I think, on a more positive note, that there is a coming together of the Jewish people, and I think I've said it perhaps before in this program, that Jewish people, by and large, they realize that they stand together. They like each other much more than they thought, regardless of their ideological viewpoints. But also a sad revelation that the others really don't care that much about the Jewish peoples as they would have thought. So there's both it's sweet and sour at the same time. But this is a game changer for sure.
And we have to stress that there are still 136 people who are detained in the Gaza Strip. And you mentioned the reality, the fact that the Israelis are united now. It showed also that despite the fact that there are hostages still in Gaza, the Israelis want the army to continue the operation, the military operation in Gaza Strip, which is also show that it's important for Israel to eradicate Hamas, and secondly, of course, to try to get the hostages back.
Maybe, Yossi, we should mention on the program, last time we met, we had a third panelist from Israel, right. Ido Shamris. Sadly, after the program, his brother was killed by friendly fire, so to speak. And we really want to show our solidarity and sympathy for Ido and his family.
And his brother.
And his brother and whole family.
It was an accident, of course.
It was an accident, of course, yes.
MEP Berg, we spoke about EU-Israel relations, which is an important topic for us in European Report. In the first week after the massacre, the 7th of October, we saw a big, important solidarity with Israel, a united front against terrorism. French President Macron went to Israel and showed solidarity, and he even suggested there should be an international coalition against Hamas, like there was a coalition against ISIS. But today, unfortunately, France is more pushing for a ceasefire. And Joseph Borrell, the European Union foreign policy chief, spoke last week during a trip in Lebanon and in Saudi Arabia, and he stressed the need for the international community to impose the two-state solution. what has changed since the 7th of October to say that Israel's position in the EU has also changed?
Well, first of all, I would like to reiterate that it is, like Thomas mentioned, the 7th of October is certainly a game changer. And what concerns me very much is, now looking at Germany, that we have seen protests, pro-Palestinian protests, but with people who also support ISIS, Hamas, Hezbollah, and other Islamist terror organizations. This is very, very concerning, it's very dangerous. And therefore I say we are standing at a crossroads, and this cannot be forgotten within this House and within other parliaments, that we are standing with Israel at a crossroads. If this issue isn't tackled, if the Israeli government, the state, and the IDF doesn't have the more opportunity to uproot these forces of evil, then I'm deeply concerned we will have to face similar issues like we have seen in Paris years ago and elsewhere in the European Union. And by the way, Jewish people have been living in Europe for more than 2,000 years. Just take for example, this historic city of Worms in Germany. Yeah. Fantastically, there's still a Jewish cemetery there, old Jewish cemetery. So they are an integral part of the European family. And therefore, it's not enough for politicians to say, especially regarding German history, nie wieder. But in order that this is not only lip service, there needs to be more support for our Jewish fellow citizens and the communities, that they are happy and feel secure in the European member states or in Europe. There are a lot of people who currently, and I'm speaking to this, say, we are considering to leave Belgium, France, maybe even Germany. And this is bad. These Jewish people are an integral part. And this is something that needs to be put top on the agenda here in this House.
And do you think that's related to what you say, this issue of anti-Semitism and the fear of many Jews in Europe is taken into consideration in the European Union by the leaders?
I think mainly yes. Of course, there's elections very soon, on 9th of June, it's only a few months to go. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I see from the left and far left, I see some comments that are very I would say Jewish, probably sometimes even anti-Semitic. And I think this needs to be put in a better balance. And the issue that we have waves of anti-Semitism raging through Europe is really bad. And a couple of days ago, I met a rabbi here in Brussels, and he said one of his sons, he was harassed playing football just because he was wearing a kippah. This is a no-go, and this needs to be addressed. It's a no-go.
Thomas Sandell, it's a no-go. We are speaking about in a few months there will be the elections. And do you think also, same question, you think European Union leaders do enough to cope with this problem of Jews fearing for their life in Europe, and some of them thinking about emigrating?
Yeah. Well, in this studio we've had Katharina von Schnurbein, of course, a fellow German many times, who is the EU coordinator in the combat against anti-Semitism, and I want to take every opportunity there is to commend her and her work. And I think in this respect, the European Commission has been a force for good, not only within Europe, but actually globally. But the problem is always, how do you make the connection between European Jewry and Israel? So on the one hand, I think there is a firm commitment in this House and within the European institutions to stand with the Jewish people in Europe, because they realize if we lose our Jewish communities, we lose some of our best people in culture, business, science, this and that. And as to quote Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who spoke about the experience of Portugal. He said, when the Jewish people were expelled, you know, we lost our best people. That's when the downturn for Portugal started. And where they arrived in the Netherlands, that was the beginning of a renaissance. So European leaders, by and large, are not foolish. They understand this reality. The problem is, how do you translate this into what is happening in the Middle East? I think Europe is moving in the right direction, by and large, in seeing the connection, in saying that it is just as detestable when 1,200 Jews are killed in cold blood in Israel as it is if it would happen here on our streets. But there's still a long way to go. And as you mentioned, there are those within the European family, there are nations, there are political fractions who would want to turn this around. And you know, you look at the court case in The Hague and say, well, no, I mean, it's Israel that is the problem. And what is Israel? That's the Jewish state. So in its extension, you know, it's the Jewish people who are the problem. So we have these two trends sort of developing in parallel. And the question is, which trend will be stronger?
MEP Berg, do you think that Israel is isolated today in Europe and in the world because of what's happening in the Gaza?
I don't think that the state of Israel is completely isolated. I think Israel has a lot of friends, especially in this house, in the European Parliament. But I think the narrative is on the verge of tipping, maybe even tipping to the negative. As Tomas just mentioned, in discussions there is always a lot of understanding with people in regards to the measures that were taken by the Israeli government and the IDF to combat and to tackle and to go after these terrorists, the Hamas terrorists. On the other hand, if in these discussions there is quite often always a but. But if you look at the media coverage coming out of Gaza, and I don't want to underestimate that, and of course every single individual civilian casualty, be it a man, child or a woman, is a tragedy. Nevertheless, the narrative is, from my feeling, is somehow tipping. And it is very important to keep this narrative balanced, to see both sides, but to always keep in mind that this shocking and terrorist attack was launched by evil forces from Hamas and their supporters from behind.
Yes.
Tomas, Sandell, do you think that the events of October 7 and the military operation that followed will strengthen EU-Israel relations, or will it isolate Israel further, or both?
Well, I'm split personally between the pessimistic Thomas and the optimistic Thomas. On the optimistic side, I think that, especially these last 10 years, Europe has more and more understood the value of having close relations with Israel. And again, I would say simply out of self-interest. You know, looking at how many terrorist attacks that have been avoided because of Israeli intelligence, and when we look at Israeli high-tech and its impact in European industries, you know, people are not stupid. They understand we need more of Israel, not less. And we've seen this, I would say again, with Ursula von der Leyen, with the president of this parliament, Roberta Metsola. But then you have the other side, and we can see it also within the European family. High Representative, again, being very, very harsh in a way and wanting to push a two-state solution despite what happened. Combined with this, I see, and I think to quote Elmar Brok, you know, long-standing veteran of this house, he once told us at a conference, he said, listen, you have our, support, but I'm concerned about people on the street. First thing I saw when I came into Brussels this week was graffiti on 3 different places Israel genocide, boycott Israel. And this is the street. The first thing I saw when I woke up this morning, although I'm in Brussels, the news was from Finland, and the news was what the music artists in the Eurovision Song Contest in Finland want. They're demanding that Israel will be boycotted, that Israel cannot compete. So you see these forces, they are not what we thought in the past, that they're the crazy, neo-Nazis. This is the cultural elite. These are the people on the street with the street credit. And that really scares me. And this is why we need friends like Mr. Berg in this parliament and hopeful in the next 4 years just as much, because we need to stand together in this battle.
This brings us to the end of this month's program. I want to say a warm thank you to both of you, MEP Berg, Tomas, Sandell. It was important to speak about these topics. These are topics that are very important for European report, especially this year because of the next elections. And I would like to ask our viewers, if they want, they can, of course, share the YouTube link with your friends or colleagues. My name is Yossi Lempkowicz, and this is the European Report. See you at the next month for the next report. Thank you very much.